This is the United Uprising channel. Welcome to today's show. Has anybody out there seen this yet? How they're marketing this, and they're telling us that this could be a good thing and this is the future. Nobody's asking questions yet. People are willingly getting in these electronic vehicles and buying these electronic vehicles, and they're not connecting the dots. Ford is patenting, okay, and by Ford, I really mean your government. They're pretending Ford's going to the government to try to patent this concept. But really, all driverless cars are patented because they're all owned and operated by the government, because all these corporations are owned and operated by the government. That's communism. But these cars, these electric cars, they want to patent, get this, that if you don't make your car payment, say something happens to you, you don't make your car payment, say you don't feel like making your car payment, that the car will turn on and drive itself to be repossessed. That's right, the car will repo itself. Don't be suspicious about that. Don't think for 1 second, well, if they have the ability to do that, they would never, ever take somebody who disagrees with the government and drive them off the Grand Canyon, right? I mean, I already know what my future holds if I ever step foot in one of these driverless vehicles. I'll tell you right now, I won't make it a week. Not because I would kill myself from the embarrassment, but because I'm sure the government would say, oops, this car, just like Doyle Rules, just drove over a banana peel and flew off a cliff. So look at this and how they're talking about this and how this, somehow this concept could be, they talk about it like it's a business model, it's artificial. This is so, no, how about no? Listen to this insanity.
Here's another reason to make your car payment on time. Ford in the process of a patent application for self-driving cars to drive away from their owners. After a series of missed payments, Ford's proposal will force the car to drive itself to a repossession agency. Having the car drive away would be a last resort. The patent application shows Ford would first pressure delinquent owners by disabling some of the car's features like the air conditioning or having the audio system play unpleasant sounds.
Wow.
All right.
The Factor Uncensored, hiding from the repo man can be stressful. You know that. And you've probably heard the stories of people trying to outsmart and avoid repossession at all costs. But what happens if time runs out to make those payments and your vehicle decides to just drive away on its own? Ford is considering that possibility for the future with plans that have been filed with the government. My next guest has more on the self-repossessing car.
This is a normal course of business. Ford is attempting to protect their intellectual property, to preserve their ability to profit from the R&D. But in the future, the problem is once these things are developed, there is a very high temptation to either utilize that technology or potentially sell it to even rival manufacturers. So if other auto companies find this technology useful or beneficial, we could see it promulgated throughout Ford, General Motors, Tesla, Rivian, you name it. We could see this promulgated throughout this industry. One of the key words that we're seeing in this patent is automated. That is a very concerning term because when this technology is rolled out, if it is, it will communicate between the lender, the vehicle, the sales and manufacturing individual, and potentially the police to allow the vehicle to drive itself to a public space to be towed, or if the distance isn't too great, to a manufacturing or sales facility. And without you even knowing it, you could wake up in the morning ready to go to work, trying to earn that money to pay the bill that you're behind on, and there's no car in the driveway. Was it stolen? No, the car chose to drive itself back to, because of whatever algorithms and processes that are developed. And we know the reason the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau exists is because some of these technologies, there are lapses, right? You have an auto payment, your bank account is hacked, the bank shuts down your account for a little bit, and then the payment doesn't process. And without any sort of recourse or human connection where you could say, oh no, the money's in the account, here's the electronic challenge, the computer could simply say, well, we don't see the payment, this car will now drive itself to a designated location and not be at your disposal.
Now, typically in the past, the average person would have, I would say, anywhere from 30 to 90 days before repo starts, right? And so it won't be just the first payment or that in a few days you miss a payment, though, right?
Technically, they would still need to follow the legal processes of that state or jurisdiction. So you would still need to have the notices from the sales individual, the banking or lending institution. You would still need to have that due process. The challenge with the computers is there are plenty of rooms for errors where maybe a 0 is read as an O or a decimal place is not where it's supposed to be. And again, instead of being able to go out to the tow truck driver and say, hang on a second, let's get these folks on the phone to figure out where the disconnect is, the car just won't be there. It'll drive itself. And one of the other proposed technologies within this patent is the idea that it could begin reducing functionality of features of the vehicle. Well, what are necessary versus optional features, right? What if, and we've seen this with commercial enterprises, what if the computer system determines that turning off your AC in Houston summer is an appropriate way to make you uncomfortable enough to go make your payment on the vehicle? Well, as we know, heat can be deadly. So now you're not just talking about someone being inconvenienced or uncomfortable to incentivize them to pay. You could be creating potentially life-threatening situations where there's an emergency, and rather than calling 911 timely, you run out to your vehicle to take someone to the hospital, a loved one who's experiencing a medical event or something of that nature, and the car isn't even there. So without that appropriate notice and timeliness, it can become a big challenge.
And of course, there are self-driving cars or cars that are able to drive themselves. And they would use that tactic where they may cut off the air conditioning or play loud, uncomfortable noises according to the patent if your car can't drive itself, right? So that's a technique they could use down the road for cars that are not self-driving.
And we found this with self-regulation in a number of industries in the real world, whether it be the self-regulation of the airplane manufacturers, where we had the incidents with the Boeing 737 MAX, but we've also seen the speculative science fiction examples, the Secretary of Defense in Elysium, right? Jodie Foster's character taking power from the president. We've seen this with Jude Law and Forrest Whitaker in The Repo Men. So there are a number of areas where the concern for the public is, what are the safeguards and measures when there is not a person to make a discretionary or qualitative judgment, when it is simply an automated process where as soon as one threshold is hit, the computer can simply move it. And to your point, with a self-driving car, unlike the disabling features that we saw unveiled with like the OnStar, if there's a auto theft, we also have the concern that if the self-driving car is removing itself, what other impediments could they encounter? And then what other dangers could be presented by that car not being in the right place?
How insane do you have to be to think that this is a good idea? Driverless vehicles. How at this point, with all the stuff that our government has shown us, Republicans, Trump, Democrats, Biden, both sides, okay, all the people out there are fed up with both sides, etc. And they're telling us that we need driverless vehicles for the environment. And then they're going, oh, by the way, you know, one of the things with the driverless vehicle, don't worry about the carbon right now. I mean, yeah, it's all about the carbon, wink, wink, is that if you don't make your car payment to the corporation, aka the state, we're just going to drive the car in the middle of the night while you're sleeping all the way to the repo place. How are they going to get and ease people's minds with this? Let me guess. They're going to tell people that, oh, well, you know, now these driverless cars, these electric cars, they can tell how much weight is in the driver's seat. So it'll never turn on with your kids in the car or you in the car. So people will go, oh, okay, well, the car knows but there's nobody in the car. So, of course, it's fine. It's safe. It's smart. I mean, how stupid can you be to give the government this much control? Okay? If you don't make your car payment, boom. Now, of course, you'll be making your car payment with universal basic income anyway. So it won't really matter because you won't really be making any money because everyone will be given an allowance, kind of like prisoners are given a few pennies here and there so they could buy a pack of cigarettes and they feel like they're still alive and human, kind of like this whole system they're trying to create. So don't be suspicious that Ford wants to patent this idea. Don't even think about it like that. That's a conspiracy to think that they would ever hurt you or harm you. No, they just want to make sure they get paid like any brand or corporation, right? That's what it's about. Don't worry about the technology where the car could actually turn itself on and could actually drive itself somewhere because it'll be able to tell how much weight is in the seat. So don't worry about it driving you off the cliff. Wink, wink. I mean, who hears this and sees that montage I gave you right there? Of video clips that have aired on the local affiliate news as they prepare and condition people for this. Who sees that and is like, that's a terrific idea? Who sees that? A human punching bag? Who sees that? It's like, hey, sign me up. I would love it. That's great. My neighbor Gary doesn't pay his electronic car vehicle fee or whatever. He hasn't paid his monthly payment on his car. Let him repossess the car. That's his own fault. Oh, all right. Don't think for any instant whatsoever, if you disagree with the government or you don't comply with certain things the government wants you to comply with, that they'll take the car and drive it away and won't allow you to have it. Not to mention possibly kill you with the car. Let's just give all the automation control to the mysterious computers and artificial intelligence behind it. Because they just want you to think when you hear AI, oh, it's just some smart computer thing. I don't know what it is. There's no man behind the curtain who could actually go and program the AI to crash specific vehicles containing specific individuals or anything like that, right? I mean, if this isn't one of the most unbelievable things, like when you see that story, your mind should just immediately go, no, 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 no. But instead, people out there see that and they're just like, whoa, well, I better make my car payment then. Instead of saying, hey, who's giving these people these types of rights? Do we still have human rights? Apparently not. Apparently not. I mean, where does the fine line go between Ford, selling you a car and then actually having ownership over the car, right? So if you buy the car, isn't it your car? Oh, right, I forgot. You'll own nothing and be happy because in communism, you don't own anything, right? But let's just look at it from the hypothetical standpoint of, these big bad boogeymen don't really exist, right? When you buy a car, is it not your car? It's your car, right? So if they want to repossess the car for lack of payments, should that give them the ability to actually turn your car on and take your car and drive it away? Some idiots out there will say yes, but those are the same people likely who are okay with your tax money funding this type of technology that's going to enslave all of us. And not to mention the fact that is this another way to take away human jobs? Well, of course it is, right? Of course it could take away human jobs because now we don't need repo men. Now you might say, well, what do we need repo men for anyway? But the reality of the matter is, how many of these are we going to check off where we're letting AI do it, where we have no control? Humans have no control, and all the power and control goes to the technology, and then all these people who are hiding in Antarctica or in the underground tunnels and cities who pretend like they have nothing to do with it. They're just like, AI's controlling it. It's just AI. And then you go, oh, okay, it's just AI. Who's AI? Who's behind it? Who's telling it? Who's programming it? Oh, it's programming itself. Oh, it's programming itself. So conveniently, conveniently, a united uprising is getting into a taxi that's driverless because he's forced to get into it, and it drives off the cliff and nobody ever hears about it. That's really, convenient, and it's just artificial intelligence that's doing it, right? Holy moly. If we continue down this path, if we continue to let these people, whether they talk about it like they're like, Ford is patenting this, and then they're like, oh, I can see this spreading to all other car companies as well. No. How about just this whole concept shouldn't be allowed to be patent? I mean, this isn't paying your bill versus giving them control over something like that is utter insanity. But people out there will just hear it. They'll be like, whoa, that sounds a little crazy. A couple weeks from now, they'll hear it again. They'll be like, oh yeah, I heard that. 2 months from now, they'll hear it again. They'll go, whatever, right? Because they'll be desensitized to it. And we just continue to hear these stories, right? We have shock value at first because we're like, whoa, right? And then you just get used to it. You get desensitized by it, and then you accept it. That's this entire operation that's psychologically going on right now worldwide. Desensitizing you to these things that don't sound good when you hear them. And guess what? They don't sound any better a year later when they implement them. The only difference is that you just go along and accept it because you're too distracted with all your toys or all your technology, and you just go, okay. And then the next thing you do is you just oblige and obey every ridiculous mandate that the government puts on you. Like, oh yeah, we should castrate kids now. The fact that there's any human beings out there that are okay with this, that are like, oh yeah, it just shows you how insane our society has gotten because of the stuff that these insane people are pushing and how people are becoming desensitized and suddenly okay and agreeing with it. Hello, is anybody out there? Apparently not. I thank everybody for being here. I had to do a rant on that. Hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you as always and your families.